Listen, before we start, I want to congratulate you on the success of your show, and I've always admired your affinity for the Grateful Dead. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, thank you. Look, there's a lot I don't know about this story, and I'm sincere in wanting to learn more. So what did you learn in the event you went to today, the closed-door session?
And this is a fishing expedition.
Okay.
They told us 2 hours. We went 3.5 hours. They repeated questions 2 and 3 times. They asked me about the same people 2 and 3 times. They were looking at each other with quizzical looks on their face. They don't know where they're going with this.
So what kind of questions did you get asked?
Well, I mean, did you know this person? Did you ever spend time with Jared Kushner? Did you ever, et cetera, all the different things that you would expect. And they couldn't hear no enough times. The fact of the matter is, I lived in Russia 25 years ago, and they're trying to ask me questions about 1994. If that's not a fishing expedition, I really don't know what it is.
So your wife got brought into this.
Yeah, Jackie Speer, the congresswoman from, and I use that term loosely, from California, mentioned my wife in the midst of a live hearing on the air, in front of millions of people. I was out of town on business. We started getting buried in threats.
What does your wife have to do with that?
Nothing. My wife, by the way, ironically, became a citizen not 1 month before, and within a month, she was already being accused of being a traitor. Jackie Speer really was...
On what grounds was your wife accused of being a traitor?
She was born in Ukraine. Which, of course, as you and I both know, if you're born in Ukraine, that doesn't make you a fan of Russia. Jackie Speer just doesn't know her facts or has really bad interns in her office. But I want an apology from Jackie Speer.
Because there's like a Cyrillic alphabet, therefore you're working for Putin?
Oh,
I thought most Ukrainians hate Putin.
They do, of course. I mean, there's a difficulty going on between the two countries right now. But if you drink vodka, you have Russian dressing in your refrigerator, you're game for these people.
So what happened when she mentioned your wife?
Well, we started getting terrible threats. In fact, I was out of town on business. I got a call on my phone from somebody who said they were Antifa. And they said, we know you're out of town. We're going to burn your house down with your wife and children in it. And, things have changed for my family dramatically, even though I left the Trump campaign on June 2nd. And even though I've never heard anyone, least of all Donald Trump, even say the word Russia during the entire time I was on that campaign. This is a fishing expedition. It's clearly designed to delay and stop the Donald Trump agenda.
So what role do you think Russia did play, just as a citizen, in the 2016 election?
Well, I believe that WikiLeaks, I've always believed that WikiLeaks has some connection to Russia. It's not clear if they did this time. We didn't even get a chance to look at the server. The DNC wouldn't even give the server to the FBI or Homeland Security. I've always thought that they were probably getting their materials in the past from Russia. But as a matter of fact, it doesn't take collusion from the Trump campaign for Russian active measures to mess with our elections. Listen, we messed with elections. The funny thing is, I was sent in 1994 to Russia by the Clinton administration to get involved in their elections.
Seeking what outcome?
The re-election of Boris Yeltsin.
Yeah, how'd that work for Russia, by the way, the re-election of Boris Yeltsin?
Yeah, it wasn't all that great. Yeah, when I met Yeltsin, he was a lion, but by the end of it, he was a souse.
Yeah, a drunk for sure. So, but you think it's likely that the Russian government was involved in the hacking of the DNC?
I think it's likely that the Russian government and its active measures were trying to get involved in the American elections because they get involved in all elections of all major nations, just like we do. We may not hack. We may. I don't know. But I can tell you as a fact, as someone who was sent to Russia to get involved in their elections, all the major opposition parties in Russia were concerned about my work there and said I had to stop meddling in their elections. That irony is not lost on me.
You were sent by the U.S. government?
By the Clinton administration. To get involved. I worked for the Central Election Commission there, trying to steer their election law, and afterwards trying to help candidates.
Do you think that the Russian government preferred candidate Trump over candidate Hillary?
No, I know they didn't. I mean, first of all, I've been told many times over by people I know from Russia and in Russia that Hillary was their candidate. And the reason why is they didn't like her. She was a problem for them, but she's predictable, totally predictable. Donald Trump, they thought maybe he was a better guy, but he was totally unpredictable. And it's a Russian standard that you go with predictable every single time.
Of course, it's absolutely a wise standard.
And you know that they were going to defeat her on every front because they did it for 8 years of Obama.
So your contention, you don't sound like much of a Putin fan.
Well, I got to tell you this. Donald Trump wants to have better relations with all nations. He wants to have better relations with Russia. I'm not a big fan of Putin. I've criticized him in the past. In the pages of the Washington Post after my friend was murdered in 2004 on the streets of Russia, on the streets of Moscow. But Donald Trump and Vladimir Putin have an opportunity to change the way that we interact together. And we're ruining it with this bogus Russia investigation.
So your friend was murdered, you believe, by the Russians. Putin had a hand in it. You're mad about it. How did you respond then when you saw a sitting member of Congress, Jackie Speier of California, refer to you as Putin's image consultant?
I know that's something. First, I don't think Putin had anything to do with my friend's murder. I think the society there was responsible for it, and it was Putin's responsibility to stand up for media freedom. That was my point in 2004. But when she called me Putin's image consultant, I was very clear to me that she has terrible interns. She didn't do any searching. All she had to do was look what I said in the media, what I said in the press. I don't make it my business to insult Vladimir Putin or anybody else around the world. But my position on Russia and on the Kremlin is very clear. All you had to do was research it. Instead, she went after me and my wife on live television, and we've been enduring death threats and other threats ever since. That's March 20th.
Really quick, I just want to flesh that just for 1 second. What was the basis for that charge that you're Putin's image? Do you know why she said that?
Sound bites. She was trying to get on television. It was very clear. It was a very important, very rare public hearing.
You've never done his hair and makeup ever?
No, I've not. I've done his manicure, of course, and of course somebody's got to wax his chest, right, when he rides the horse. Listen,
now you're getting dirty, Mike.
I know Jackie Speier does not deserve to be in Congress if she doesn't come back and apologize to my wife for what she did. She can say whatever she wants about me, Putin's image consultant, Maxine Waters, Manny Petty guy. But as far as I'm concerned, you bring in family members, you bring in my wife, who became a citizen less than a month before. She owes us an apology.
Especially as a Ukrainian. It's bizarre. Michael CAPUTO, thank you for joining us.
Thanks a lot, Tom.
Appreciate it. As you know, many on the left don't like the police. Will the surge in anti-police violence tone down the rhetoric from the left? Probably not. In a minute, we're joined by a writer from Salon.com who's written on this subject. Also, who do you think is more inclusive, more open-minded, atheists or religious people? That answer straight ahead. Well, the recent surge in anti-police rhetoric has been matched, maybe not surprisingly, with a corresponding surge in anti-police violence. That includes the recent death of NYPD officer Myosotis Famia, who was assassinated in a patrol car last week in the Bronx. None of it has been enough to mute liberals, some of whom at Salon.com, days after the shooting, ran a piece entitled, "America is Suffering from a Plague of Deadly and Unaccountable Racist Police Violence." The author of that piece, Celisa Kalakal, joins us tonight. Celisa, thanks for coming on.
Hi, Tucker. Thanks for having me.
So I guess I have a more nuanced view of this. I think that there is behavior by police, as there is by every sector of society, that's impossible to excuse and that should be cracked down on. I guess what I disapproved of in your piece was the generalizations that you made, that police as a group are racist and violent. And I wonder how you reached that conclusion.
Well, in my piece, I never actually said that police are racist. What I talk about is police violence and the rate of police officers who kill civilians in recent years. If you look at the numbers, in 2015 and 2016, over 1,000 people have been shot and killed by police officers. Those numbers don't lie. And this year, over 500 people so far have been killed by police. So what I'm talking about is police violence that kills a lot of people, and a lot of those people are unarmed or they don't pose a threat to officers, and those are alarmingly high numbers. So in my piece, I never say that police are racist, but they can get violent very quickly, as we've seen in a lot of...
Right. I mean, I don't want to I don't want to contradict you because you seem sincere, but I don't know if you can see, we've got the headline of your piece up on the screen right next to you. It says, and I'm quoting, "America is suffering from a plague of deadly, unaccountable, and racist police violence." A plague of it. That seems like a generalization. Now, I would agree with you completely. Any shooting is too many shootings, but this is complicated stuff. And so to dismiss it, as your piece did, as racist without proving that seemed unfair and not really like journalism.
Well, if you look at the demographics of the people that are killed by police, disproportionately, a number of them are black and brown people. Black people are 3 times more likely to be killed by police than white people. And in a lot of cases, 69% of black people that are shot and killed by police are actually unarmed, or they didn't pose a violent threat. So in my piece, I show that police violence disproportionately affects the black and brown communities, more so than other communities. So
okay, well, but they're also much higher. I mean, this is again a complex matter, and there are much higher crime rates in those communities for who knows why, but there are. And so that may be a factor in this. But here are some numbers that I think show just how complicated this is. So there was a study a couple of years ago of about 2,700 police shootings between 2013 and 2015. And I'm quoting now, found that the odds of a black suspect being killed by a black officer were consistently greater than the odds of a black suspect being killed by a white officer. That doesn't prove anything necessarily, but it does maybe show that racism isn't as simple in this context as you're making it sound. If a black suspect's more likely to be shot by a black cop, then what does that tell us about racism?
Well, I think what it tells us is we have to look at the system and not the individual police officers that are killing these people. Systematically, the way police officers are trained, they're taught to go for violence first. In a lot of states, they don't tell police officers to resort to other means to subdue a subject other than shooting and killing them. So
okay, but hold on. But right, there are two different things. Whether non-lethal force ought to be used first is a valid question. But I want to get to the question of race. So, and I'm quoting, white officers statistically less likely than black officers to kill black suspects. So if all cops are being taught to be racist, why are black cops more likely to shoot black suspects? It doesn't really make much sense, does it?
No, you're looking at it individually. When it needs to be looked at as a systemic.
Looking at the numbers.
No, it's supposed to be. You have to look at it in a systemic way, where you look at the system that allows these police officers to commit these acts of violence, and then they don't get held accountable for it. We've seen time and again police officers getting off on killing another person. Geronimo Yanez, who was shot and killed, Philando Castillo, he was acquitted of all charges.
I mean, again, I don't want to be mean, but you're maybe dodging the point a little bit. I think some of the issues that you're raising are valid issues. I don't want anybody to commit brutality against anybody else, and I mean it. But to charge that racism is at the core of this without any evidence, because you actually don't have any evidence at all, and there's some countervailing evidence, makes people more fearful, makes them hate each other, makes our society way less happy and less trusting. And so it's a big deal to charge something like that. And don't you think you should pull back until you can prove it? I guess that's my point.
Well, I do think I do prove it in my piece, because if you look at the statistics and you look at the data, police violence disproportionately affects black and brown bodies, and it always has. Throughout history.
Why are black cops more likely to shoot black suspects than white cops are? How does that fit into your neat little racism package? I don't get that. It doesn't make any sense.
Well, as police officers, they're part of the police system in this country, that no matter what race you are, you still are taught the same tactics.
But why are they more likely? I mean, it doesn't, look, again, I just want you to open your mind a little bit. This isn't college. And just look at the facts and then draw your conclusions from those. And sometimes, you reach a point where you're like, I'm not exactly sure what's going on, but it's not as simple as my professors told me it was. That's all I'm hoping that you'll conclude.
Okay, well, I think you're missing a point a little bit about what I was trying to get at in my article, and about the seriousness of police violence and why we need to address it in a meaningful way.
Okay, well, I'm with you in some ways on that. The race stuff is wrong. So, Lisa, thanks for joining us. I appreciate it.
Thank you.